We begin with a day of news in which you could watch the storyline unfolding just by watching what was happening to a handful of stocks. Check this out. At around 11 a.m. yesterday, stock prices for Aetna, United Health, and WellPoint, three of the country's biggest health insurance companies, all took sort of a modest dive. What happened at around 11 a.m. yesterday? Well, word was starting to leak that at Harry Reid's afternoon press conference, he was going to announce that the Senate health reform bill was going to include a public option. Now, as you know, a public option would mean more competition for health insurance companies, and if there's anything that competitive companies like less than competition, I don't know what it is. So the rumors of a public option, health insurance stocks started turning south. Then today, at around 2 p.m. this afternoon, those same three stocks simultaneously shot way back up. What happened today at around 2 o'clock that might have caused health insurance stocks to rebound? Well, today at around 2 o'clock, Senator Joe Lieberman of the Connecticut for Lieberman party did something that made health insurance companies really happy. He announced his intention to block any vote on a health reform bill that includes a public option. He didn't just announce that he'll vote no on that kind of bill. That would not have been a surprise. Lieberman instead announced that he would vote to filibuster the bill. He would vote to keep his supposedly fellow Democrats from putting health reform up for a majority vote. So, woohoo, happy days for health insurance stocks. Coming into today, we knew the Senate bill would include a public option, and that a public option has majority support in the Senate. More than 50 Democratic senators support the idea of a public option. The question was whether Republicans could figure out a way to block a majority vote, to say, no, it doesn't matter that you have majority support. You're going to need 60 votes, not 50 votes, in order to pass this bill. Because the Republican minority in the Senate is so small, they can't block a majority vote on their own. They need at least one Democrat to cross over and join with them. That's where Joe Lieberman comes in. Senator Lieberman informed reporters this afternoon, quote, "If the bill remains what it is now, I will not be able to support a cloture motion before final passage. Therefore, I will try to stop the passage of the bill." Translated into English, that means Joe Lieberman plans to join with Republicans to filibuster health reform. And given that Mr. Lieberman caucuses with the Democrats, he might thereby make American history. According to our next guest, when one party has enough members to overcome the other party's filibuster, a member of the majority has never before crossed party lines to filibuster with the minority. And that's exactly what Joe Lieberman is now threatening to do in order to kill health reform. And lest you think this is some sort of principled stand by Mr. Lieberman, that he always blocks votes on bills that he opposes, my answer to that is nuh-uh. In 2005, Senator Lieberman agreed to allow a vote on a banking bill, even though he ultimately voted against it. Same thing in 2006. Senator Lieberman agreed to allow a vote on a border bill, even though he ultimately voted against it. In 2007, you're getting the idea here, right? Senator Lieberman agreed to allow a vote on an Iraq war bill, even though he ultimately voted against it. If Mr. Lieberman follows through on his threat this time and actually does vote with the minority to filibuster health reform against his own party, then health reform will take 60 votes to pass instead of 50. And in all likelihood, America will not get a public option or much else that we've been debating about health reform. If Senator Lieberman follows through and makes history in this way, if he decides to make history by punching his own party in the throat in this way, how will his party respond? Will he get to keep his chairmanship of the Senate Homeland Security Committee, for example? And if so, why? Joining us now is Jane Hampshire, founder and publisher of the progressive blog Fire Dog Lake. Jane, thanks very much for coming back on the show. It's good to see you.
Thanks for having me, Rachel.
Let me ask you about the statistic that I attributed to you in my intro there. I know you've been doing some digging on this issue of a Democrat joining a Republican filibuster. How unprecedented would a move like this be for Senator Lieberman?
Well, we have seen members of the other party cross over, where we remember the Dixiecrats joining the Republicans in the 60s on civil rights filibusters. But they weren't breaking a filibuster-proof majority. It's never happened before that one party had, technically in the caucus, a filibuster-proof majority, and one of the members joined over with the opposition party to filibuster them and break that. And you have to ask yourself, and I know you have, Rachel, what were they thinking when they let Joe into the caucus and didn't get him to agree to join with them on procedural votes? Because that 60 votes, without that, is abjectly meaningless.
Well, there are a handful of conservative Democrats who have been unwilling to commit overtly one way or the other on the issue of cloture, on the issue of procedural votes, filibusters. Is it possible that Lieberman's apparent defection here might open the floodgates? So it won't just be him; it'll be even more than him who would promise to do this.
That's the danger there, is that these people, senators don't tend to like to do these things in ones. You'll notice Joe even himself didn't say he would do it. He said he was leaning towards doing it. So he's obviously looking for company in that decision, and Ben Nelson could give him to it. On the other hand, Blanche Lincoln, I dare Blanche Lincoln. I dare Blanche Lincoln to join a filibuster. She'll draw a primary opponent so fast it would make your head spin.
Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid told reporters today, and I quote, Joe Lieberman is the least of Harry Reid's problems, referring to himself in the third person. He said, there are a lot of senators, Democrat and Republicans, who don't like parts of this bill. Senator Lieberman will let us get on the bill, and he'll be involved in the amendment process. Does Senator Reid's apparent lack of concern about this assuage any of your concerns about it?
Well, it depends on what he's talking about. Technically, Joe did say that he would let the debate proceed on the floor, and that they could add amendments and try and make the bill better. So he's not going to join an initial filibuster. There are actually two cloture votes necessary. One is to proceed with debate, and the other one is for the final bill. He's saying that he, would potentially join with the Republicans if the bill stayed in its current form. But Harry Reid does have to worry about this, because he's the one, back in 2008, I was actually looking at an old video of yours today, Rachel, where you said, is this the best idea? And Harry Reid is the one who said at the time, I trust Joe, when people said, is he going to join with the Republicans in filibuster? Because he was Joe. And Reid said, I trust him. So, Reid's the one who, as majority leader, did not get Lieberman to commit as the price of his gavel to join with the caucus on procedural votes. So if Joe wants to screw him over, that's fine. Joe may not pay a price in Connecticut, but Reid will pay a price in Nevada for it.
In terms of that chairmanship, it sounds like Harry Reid would be surprised if Joe Lieberman filibustered. As you say, he clearly didn't get a commitment on procedural votes from Lieberman when Lieberman got to keep that chairmanship. But it's probably worth pointing out that since President Obama has been in office, the most high-profile thing that Joe Lieberman has done with his Homeland Security chairmanship is hold a hearing on whether or not President Obama has too many czars, just like Fox News said that he did. What value is he to the Democrats that they would let him keep that seat?
One has to wonder at Joe Lieberman holding these hearings on the czars and not say Blackwater, which would also be under his jurisdiction as Homeland Security. It's meaningless. 60 votes is meaningless if you don't have them. He's not a Democrat. He was elected, as you know, as the Connecticut for Lieberman party, and his job is to basically be of more value to the Republicans within the Democratic caucus than he would be on the outside of it. So I don't particularly see the value in keeping him. But if Harry Reid does, then I think that he and the president are going to have to lean on Joe this time, because otherwise, I think that there will be a price to pay for allowing him to dictate what the caucus does. 30 members of the Senate signed a letter saying that they supported a public option. Those 30 senators are a majority once you take Joe out of the equation of the caucus, and they could vote to strip Lieberman of his gavel. So, there are consequences on down the line for Joe's lack of loyalty.
Jane Hampshire, founder and publisher of Fire Dog Lake, the first person to have ever issued a live dare on this show. Thank you for crossing that Rubicon with us, Jane. It's good to see you.
Good to see you.